A priest stood on the shore of the Sea of Galilee in the spring of 2009, looking at 5 acres of farmland he had just bought to build a guest house. He had no archaeological ambition. He wanted a place where pilgrims could pray. He wanted a chapel, a few simple rooms, a garden facing the water. What he did not know, what nobody had known for almost 2,000 years, was that under his feet, 6 feet down, hidden beneath a layer of black topsoil and a wild crop of weeds, lay the floor of a building Jesus of Nazareth almost certainly walked into. The only first-century synagogue ever recovered intact in Galilee, the Synagogue of Mary Magdalene's hometown, and inside it, waiting, a single carved stone that would rewrite how the world pictures the heart of Israel's worship in the days when Jesus taught. In the next 22 minutes, 3 things are going to braid together. The synagogue where Jesus probably stood, the stone carved by someone who had seen the Second Temple before Rome burned it to ash in 70 AD, and the woman from that town whose transformation, from a soul possessed by 7 demons to the first witness of the resurrection, is the entire gospel compressed into one life. This is not just an archaeology story. This is a story about what it means when God walks into your broken town and calls you by a name above the name you have been carrying. The priest's name was Juan Solana, an Italian-born member of the Legionaries of Christ, soft-spoken, a man who spent more time praying than planning. He had been sent to develop a guest house for Catholic pilgrims on a stretch of Galilean shore the locals called Magdala, the modern Arabic Hebrew echo of the ancient town of Magdala. He bought the land. He filed the building permits. And then the Israel Antiquities Authority arrived, as they always do in that country, and told him what every developer in Israel is told. Before you pour concrete, we dig. A routine salvage excavation, a formality, 2 weeks, maybe 3. The IAA dispatched a young archaeologist named Dina Avshalom Gorny to lead the survey. She came prepared for a quiet dig. A handful of pottery sherds, perhaps a coin or 2, then back to Jerusalem. Galilee was farmland in the 1st century, and farmland tends not to hide cities. She had no reason to expect what her brush was about to uncover. Picture the morning it happened. The sun is rising over the Sea of Galilee, the water still gray and flat. The team has set up tables under canvas. Father Solana's car winds down the hill from his temporary lodging, the same road pilgrims today walk to reach the site. He arrives with coffee for the diggers. Dust hangs in the air, fine, pale, the dust of disturbed soil that has not been disturbed in centuries. Avshalom Gorny is on her knees at the corner of a trench, brushing back at a stone that should not be there. Not a field stone, not a foundation block from some Crusader-era farmhouse. A worked stone, dressed limestone, the edges still sharp under 20 centuries of earth. Then another, then a line of them. She stands up slowly. Imagine that pause, the kind of silence a person feels in their chest when they realize the ground beneath them is not what they were told it was. She turns to her colleague, the IAA inspector Arfan Najjar, and says something quiet. They keep brushing. Within hours, they expose a bench, a stone bench cut along the inside of a wall, the kind of bench Jews sat on to listen to the reading of the Torah in the days of the Second Temple. By the 2nd day, they have found a mosaic floor. By the end of the 1st week, they have the outline of an entire building, 12 meters by 12, with columns and benches and a central platform. It is a synagogue, a 1st century synagogue. Father Solana, when they tell him, does not say anything for a long moment. Picture him standing at the edge of the trench, his hands in the pockets of his cassock, his eyes on the stones. The waters of Galilee lap quietly behind him. He has come here to build a place where people could pray near where Jesus walked. He has just discovered that he bought by accident the floor where Jesus may have actually stood. He kneels at the edge of the wall, the way priests kneel, not theatrical, just the bend of a knee, the bow of a head. And he whispers something the workers later remembered him whispering. He says in Italian something like, "The Lord himself chose the foundation." The dating came over the next months. Coins from the Hasmonean period, late 2nd century BC. Coins from the reign of Herod the Great. Ceramic typology consistent with 1st century Galilean village life. The architecture itself. Bench seating along the perimeter, columns supporting a peaked roof, a central focal area where a reader would stand, matched what scholars had previously only theorized a Galilean synagogue would look like. The building was operational from roughly 50 BC to its destruction by the Roman general Vespasian in 67 AD during the First Jewish Revolt. The Jewish historian Josephus describes that destruction in his work known as the Wars of the Jews, Book 3, Chapter 10. The Romans came down on Magdala because it was a base of resistance. They sacked it. The town went silent. The shoreline shifted over the centuries. The lake rose, the buildings collapsed inward, and 20 centuries of farmland buried everything in dark Galilean soil. Until a Mexican priest holding a permit for a hotel accidentally bought the deed. Now here is what changes everything. Matthew chapter 4, verse 23 says it in plain language. Jesus went throughout Galilee, teaching in their synagogues, proclaiming the gospel of the kingdom, and healing every disease and every affliction among the people. Throughout Galilee, in their synagogues. This building, the only intact 1st century Galilean synagogue ever found, was operational during the years of Jesus's public ministry. It is roughly 5 miles from Capernaum, the town the Gospels say became his base. Magdala lay directly on the road Jesus would have walked from Capernaum south toward Tiberias. Mary, the woman the Gospel of Luke chapter 8 verse 2 calls Mary called Magdalene, out of whom 7 demons had gone. This town was her home. The synagogue archaeologists found was the synagogue she attended. The synagogue Jesus, by every reasonable reading of the gospel narratives, taught inside. That is staggering enough on its own. But what they found in the middle of that synagogue floor, that is where the story turns. It was a stone, rectangular limestone, roughly 60 centimeters long, 50 wide, 30 tall, about the size of a coffee table turned on its side. It was sitting in the central area of the synagogue, where a reader would have placed the Torah scroll for public reading, carved on all 4 sides and on its top surface. And what was carved into it was something no one had ever seen carved into a stone before. The image of the menorah, the 7-branched golden lampstand of the Jerusalem temple. Beside the menorah, 2 columns. Above it, an arch. Below it, a chariot wheel that scholars came to interpret as a representation of the chariot throne from the prophet Ezekiel's vision. On the sides of the stone, more architectural details, what appeared to be the interior structure of the holy place, even glimpses of the curtain that veiled the Holy of Holies. Here is what most people never consider. The temple in Jerusalem was destroyed in 70 AD. After Rome torched it, no Jew was permitted to enter the Temple Mount, and within a generation the actual interior architecture of Herod's temple was lost to living memory. There are only 2 ancient depictions of the 7-branched menorah of the Second Temple. One is on the Arch of Titus in Rome, carved on the orders of the emperor who burned the place down, showing Roman soldiers carrying the menorah away as plunder. And the other is this stone, found in the floor of a synagogue in Mary Magdalene's hometown, carved by all archaeological consensus before 6th AD, which means carved by someone who had stood in the temple and seen the menorah with his own eyes. The excavation team, Dina Avshalom Gorny of the IAA, the Mexican archaeologist Marcela Zapata Meza from Universidad Anáhuac, the IAA inspector Arfan Najar, with Father Juan Solana as site sponsor, They all understood within weeks of finding it that they had pulled out of the ground a piece of evidence that the Jewish community of Magdala, in the years when Jesus walked their lakeshore, was carrying the temple in their imagination wherever they sat to worship. And this is the part nobody mentions. The people in Magdala were aching for the temple. They lived 100 miles from Jerusalem. Most of them maybe made the journey 3 times a year for the great pilgrimage feasts. The rest of the year they sat in this small village synagogue on the Sea of Galilee, and they sat next to a stone carved with the image of the temple itself, because they wanted to keep the presence of God's house close to them. They were a people longing for the place where heaven came down, and into that longing, into that exact synagogue, into that exact room with that exact stone, Jesus walked. The Gospel of John, chapter 2, verse 19. Destroy this temple, and in 3 days I will raise it up. Verse 21. But he was speaking about the temple of his body. The people of Magdala had a stone of the temple in the center of their synagogue. Jesus was the temple himself, standing in the same room, and most of them did not recognize it. This is the heart of the video, not the dig, not the dates. This, the longing of a small town, the stone carved by someone who remembered the temple, the rabbi who walked through their door and was, in his own body, everything that stone had been a shadow of. The book of Hebrews, chapter 9 and chapter 10, unpacks the theology of it in detail. The temple was always a copy of the real thing in heaven. The menorah was always a picture of a deeper light. The veil was always a foreshadow of the body of Christ torn open on the cross. The people of Magdala were sitting beside the shadow. The substance walked through their door, and one woman in that room recognized him. What few people know about Mary Magdalene is how badly her portrait has been distorted over the centuries. The popular image is of a fallen woman, a prostitute weeping in shame at the feet of Jesus. The Bible never calls her any of that. The Gospel of Luke, chapter 8, verses 1 through 3, describes her with care. Mary, called Magdalene, out of whom 7 demons had gone. And along with her, listen to this, Joanna, the wife of Chuza, Herod's household manager, and Susanna and many other women who provided for them out of their means. Mary Magdalene was not a beggar. She was a woman of means in a town with a stone-carving budget for its synagogue floor, a town wealthy enough to be on the Roman trade route around the Sea of Galilee. She was a woman whom Jesus had liberated from 7 demons, a Hebrew way of saying a full possession, total bondage, and after that liberation she gave back. She funded the ministry. She walked with the disciples. She was at the cross when most of the men had fled. And on the 3rd day, the Gospel of John, chapter 20, verses 1 through 18, she was the first human being to see the risen Christ. Augustine of Hippo, in the 5th century, gave her a title the Church preserved for centuries, Apostola Apostolorum, the apostle to the apostles. Now go deeper, her name. Mary of Magdala. In the Greek of the New Testament, it is Maria he Magdalene, Mary the Magdalene. And in the Hebrew underneath, the place name Magdala comes from the word Migdal, MJDL. Migdal means tower, a watchtower, a high fortified place, a point of strength rising above the plain. Magdala was probably named for a fishing tower on the lakeshore, where men dried fish for trade. So the literal meaning of Mary's title, the title Jesus and the apostles and the early church used for her, is Mary of the Tower, Mary the Tower. And tower language runs through the Hebrew scriptures like a thread. Proverbs chapter 18, verse 10. The name of the Lord is a strong tower. The righteous run into it and are safe. Psalm 61, verse 3. For you have been my refuge, a strong tower against the enemy. Isaiah chapter 5, verse 2, the Song of the Vineyard. He built a watchtower in the midst of it. Strength, refuge, watchfulness, protection. That is what a tower meant in the imagination of a 1st century Jew. Here is the detail that should stop you. Jesus did something with names. He took Simon the fisherman and renamed him Kepha, Aramaic for rock, Petros in Greek, Peter. He looked at a brash, impulsive, unsteady man and said, "You are rock." He gave him an identity above who he had been. And Mary, the broken woman of the broken town, when she came up out of her bondage, when the demons fled, and she stood whole in the synagogue floor where this stone sat, she carried already in the very name of her town the name Tower. Peter, the rock; Mary, the tower. Both lifted, both renamed by grace, both becoming what their broken selves could never have been. Mary the tower stood watch at the cross when the men ran. Mary the tower came in the dark of the third morning while the city slept. Mary the tower was the first to see the one she had loved alive again. And she ran back and she told the apostles the first sermon of the resurrection, the first proclamation that the tomb was empty and the Lord was risen, was preached by a woman named Mary of the Tower. After 2009, the Magdala Stone went on tour. Italy in 2012, the Vatican Museum, then Mexico, then the United States, where it traveled through Catholic and evangelical exhibitions. Pilgrims by the tens of thousands have stood and looked at the menorah carved by an eyewitness of the temple. The site itself is now called Magdala Center, a place where archaeology, prayer, and theology meet on the shore where Jesus walked. Father Juan Solana still serves there. He never built the hotel he had originally planned, not exactly. He built something different, a house of memory where the synagogue floor sleeps a few meters away from the chapel he raised in honor of the women of the Gospels. But the climax of this story is not the tour or the pilgrims or even the synagogue. The climax is what the Magdala Stone teaches every one of us who is willing to listen. The gospel reaches into your Magdala, your broken town, your dismissed self, the version of you that the world has labeled with 7 demons it cannot name. Addiction, shame, fear, grief, the failure you cannot stop replaying. Jesus does not appear primarily in capital cities and royal courts. He shows up local. He walks into ordinary synagogues in ordinary towns where ordinary people are sitting beside their stones, longing for a presence they cannot reach. And he is the presence. He calls people by tower names. He sees the woman the world calls broken and calls her watchtower. He sees the fisherman the world calls unstable and calls him rock. He sees you in whatever Magdala you are sitting in tonight, and he is already in the room. The stone in the middle of that synagogue floor was a longing. The man walking through the door was the answer. The town of Magdala had a menorah carved in stone. The light of the world stood beside it, and the woman with 7 shadows in her past became the first messenger of the resurrection. Here is the question I want to leave with you, the one I want you to type in the comments below. If you could sit on one of those original Magdala benches 2,000 years ago and listen to Jesus teach for 1 hour, which of his teachings would you most want to hear? The Sermon on the Mount? A parable you have never fully understood? The bread of life discourse? The Good Shepherd? Tell me which one and tell me why. I am going to read every answer. If this video opened something in you, share it with someone who is sitting in their own Magdala right now. Subscribe to Bible Decoded so you do not miss what is coming next. We are going further into the archaeology that the gospel keeps quietly confirming, century after century, dig after dig. And if you remember nothing else from this video, remember this. A priest bought a field. A young archaeologist brushed at a stone that should not have been there. They uncovered the floor where Jesus stood. They uncovered the stone the locals carved because they were longing for the temple. And they uncovered by accident the simple ancient truth of the gospel. The temple himself walked into the synagogue of a broken town. He found a woman the world had written off. He gave her a tower's name, and he sent her out to tell us, all of us, every Magdala, every century, that he is alive and he is here and he is calling.